Hello and good morning, everyone. This is Arthur joining here from Delta. I'm joined by my colleague Matti Kaula.
Good morning, everyone.
And we are here today to talk about the connected home market in Europe and where this market is at. Is anyone actually making money from that market? Because that's one of the most asked questions today in that market. And what we have done actually in recently is we published the state of the European market for connected home energy. And part of that, we kind of start to think about if people are making money from that market, or is it still a long-term game that people are trying to play in? So we'll try to answer these questions in this webinar. The webinar is currently being recorded, so this will be made available then on YouTube. The slides will be made available as well on PDF. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask through the webinar. You should have a button to do that. But before we start, let's do a quick poll. Actually, asking you guys what you think on that question. Is anyone getting return on investment? So you can see four choices here, and if you just click on one of the choices, we will publish the answers in a few seconds time. In this webinar, we will talk a bit about the findings from our report. We will talk about the values that that some companies are getting from the connector markets, that the future values that they could get as well, and why some of the players are using different strategies to capture these values in the future. So we can see a lot of answers coming up. A big majority saying that a few companies are actually making a profit, which is quite interesting. We would have thought that most people would think that not so many companies are actually making a lot of return on this market. So let's give it 5 more seconds to get this. We have 70% voted. Okay, we'll close the poll now and share the results with you. So as you can see on your slides, 56% of around 80 people who voted have said that a few companies are making profit, but obviously not so many companies are actually making profit. So it's down to a few players making money in the space, and the rest is still just investing and not getting the returns from that. So moving on with the webinar. So this will be around 40 minutes long. We will talk a bit about ourselves, of course, but we will talk mostly about the findings from our latest study, the annual state of the European connector market. We will talk about the key findings, the size of the market, the key players, some of the recent developments, and we will talk about a bit more in depth about who is making money today and how these players are trying to make money today, in the short term, in the future, and trying to see the trends around that. And we will talk a bit about the next step that we will be doing in terms of our research. So, as I say, my name is Arthur Joannick. I'm principal analyst here at Delta. I'm joined with my colleague Matti, who is now managing the Connectome service, so he's responsible for all the research. Hi, Matti.
Hi, everyone.
And the rest of our team is not here today, but you probably know some of them already, John, Maria, Antoine, Sue, and a few other people actually working on this service here at Delta. So we have quite a big team of analysts looking at this market on an ongoing basis.
All right. To get started, these are some of the extracts from our latest State of the Market report we published just now in March. You can see on the screen, on the graph, we're showing the number of new customers for connected home energy products in Europe. When we talk about connected home energy products, we're talking about smart thermostats, connected TRVs, connected lighting, and smart plugs. And it's good to note that these are number of new customers, not the number of new devices. And also on the graph, you can see at the top of the bar, the market value we estimate for all the products that were shipped in that year. And I think the key message here from moving from 2015 to 2016 is that, as it says on our webinar title, we saw still good growth in the market. It's roughly 50% growth on the market. And in the next few years, we estimate that the market will roughly double in size. Some of the key takeaways from the graph or from the findings are that we estimated that more than 2.3 million homes equipped connected home energy products in 2016, and still most of these are smart thermostats. This is the biggest product category, but we are seeing the fastest growth around some of these other new connected home energy products like smart plugs and connected lighting, and we'll come on later on the webinar on some of the reasons why we've seen these trends. But when you look at at a country level and a geographic level, it's easy to see that most of the sales are still focused in just really 3 countries: the UK, Germany, and the Netherlands, and the rest of Europe is really lagging behind for quite a few years. And we'll also be going a bit in depth more on why these what are the reasons behind this, and also some of the trends that we might see in the future.
And in terms of, I mean, Matti showed the value of this market year by year, and what we mean by this value is it's literally the hardware value. So how much are customers paying for this? So it's excluding any kind of service, excluding any sort of B2B service as well. So the 3 main revenue we can see from these markets are the direct, indirect revenue, and the future revenues that could be created in the future. In terms of direct revenue, actually, the most obvious one is actually making margin on the hardware, which is what most product manufacturers are doing. And actually, the manufacturers themselves, or at least the leading ones, are making money and getting returns on their investment because of this margin. But this is a unique case, and the service providers like utilities, telcos, and other companies are actually not making a lot of margin on the products, if any. Usually they subsidize the products, but they are trying to find ways to monetize this by having a monthly service fee. So for example, Ineco is pricing this at €3.50 a month. Cross-sell and upsell other products. So British Gas and Hive have launched new products this year, and from their smart thermostat, they are trying to sell smart plugs, smart lighting, sensors, etc. So it's an easy way to get quick money. And some of them are actually trying to sell their platform as a service. So if you look at the QB platform that was bought by Ineco last year, they are using this platform for all their utilities, and NG last year started to play around with that platform and to offer the same products, the same services behind, and adding some of their own stuff. But basically the point of Ineco is to sell that service to other companies, and that could be quite profitable. But there are also lots of indirect revenues which are hard to quantify actually, and that's why is anyone making return on investment is a very tough question to answer. So Ineco, for example, is saying a lot of things about increased NPS, reduced churn, etc. But these are hard to see how this is materialized in terms of money. But obviously what Ineco does is selling a thermostat and other connected products with a 4 years energy contract. So obviously the churns are reducing for these customers. What will be interesting is to see if the churns keep reducing after this 4 years period. And that is yet to materialize because we are not yet after this 4 years since the start. But some people also say that acquisition costs have been reduced since the connected markets is there. In terms of operational costs, so for example, big boiler maintenance business like British Gas, if you have 4 million boiler contracts and are able to have a good quantity of these contracts connected so that you can remotely identify faults and identify the parts that need to be replaced, then you will save a lot of money on travel for your plumbers, for example. But it's not only about utilities and service providers. Companies like the boiler manufacturers have also indirect revenue or values from selling smart thermostats. Bosch in Netherlands, through the Nefit brand, for example, has been giving away the smart thermostat for a few months, almost a year now. And actually the point is maybe not to sell more boilers, but just to retain its number of boilers that they will sell year after year. And it's hard to see the impact of that on the overall sales, obviously, but it's very likely that bundling and offering a smart thermostat with the boiler will have reduced the chances of Bosch reducing its market share in the Netherlands.
And you could even argue that in the future, it will also be at least a cost. If you don't offer these products, then you might lose out on customers. So you might not be making any money directly by offering the smart thermostat, but if you don't offer it, you might lose customers. So there's this kind of aspect as well that is becoming, like in the Netherlands, almost a hygiene factor, that you have to offer these products because there's demand for them.
Exactly. And the last one in the indirect revenues is is the bundle with a core product or with a new product. So for example, utilities, we need to install smart meters in the next 5 to 8 years, might well think about bundling the installation with a smart thermostat or with a gateway installation, so that's actually the combined cost of these are lower than initially. And if you think about it, that's what Deutsche Telekom is doing in Germany, where they say they will put the connectivity within the routers to their customers. And therefore, again, it's bundling the core product with connectivity, which then enables them to have a lower cost of installing and selling the connectivity.
And also, for example, at the recent IHS event in Germany, we saw a lot of boiler manufacturers doing the same with boilers. Now that, for instance, Viessmann is shipping a lot of its boilers with connected chips in them. So these connectivity modules are being added to loads of core products across different verticals.
And then you think about the future revenues, because the point is to have so many customers that you're able to monetize something else. And we have identified 4 here, but there are many more that we could talk about. But one of the most talked about is the data that you can collect from connected devices, especially around the heat and energy, and your experience of doing analytics from that and applying this to a bigger volume of devices in the households in Europe. So collecting the data today, doing the analytics will be very valuable for future developments, and you can even sell that again as a B2B service to other utilities, to other service providers, so that it can be reused effectively. And in Delta, of course, our core business is around energy, so we see a lot of value from connected home in demand response and new energy business models. So there are lots of peer-to-peer trading, for example, also in home energy management, where you will link the EVs, the storage, and the management of all the appliances in the home. So all this, again, it's quite hard to see where the money is and if anyone is getting return. It's very likely that apart from product manufacturers, there is very little direct revenue which will enable return on investment. Indirect revenues are harder to quantify, but we do believe that there is a lot of value there, and future revenues are actually where the value will be for the market. So again, we have had a few questions already asking if the slides will be circulated afterwards. The answer is yes. These slides will be made available to you. And this person has asked a question in the question box here, so feel free to do the same throughout the webinar, and we'll try to pick up the questions and answer them. So feel free to fire questions, and we'll try to do our best to answer them. So now stepping back a bit and talking a bit about ourselves at Delta E. So we see that lots of you registered on the webinar know us already, but just to give you an overview, and for those who don't know us, we are a consulting and research business, and our mission is to help clients navigate through the transformation of the energy system from centralized, from meter points for commodity sales, where the value was upstream, towards a more distributed, decentralized, service-oriented, and digitalized energy world. And some of our clients are service providers like utilities, some insurance, some telcos. We also work for technology manufacturers like the boiler, the control manufacturers, or the storage, all these sort of technology manufacturers. And we also do some work for policy makers, policy shapers, investors, associations, etc. But in terms of where our focus is with Matti, it's more on the digitalization of the energy system. And we work together on the connected home service, but there are other services that are around there. So in Delta, we have a business model where we have subscription services. You can have access to one particular topic. You have ongoing support and reports and materials available. And the topics in this are connected home, are new energy business models, customer data analytics, focusing specifically on the value from the data. We also do multi-client studies, so one-off study which can be bought by multiple companies. We just recently did something on microgrids, on flexibility, demand response. But we also do a lot of consulting around the market analysis, strategies, innovations, competitor analysis, etc. So this is the portfolio that we can do around this topic.
Okay, now on this slide, you see this is the same graph that I showed you early on the webinar to start it off. Now focusing just on the year 2015 and 2016, and to maybe highlight some of the key drivers and the key trends we saw in the market. To start off, I think you have to start off with Amazon Alexa, and because that was In Europe, it's only available in UK and Germany, and while it has had a big impact, for instance, on the UK market, you can see the wider impact it is having on the whole connected home market. So at the moment, virtually every company, every product supplier, technology supplier has either integrated with Alexa or is working on integrating their products with Alexa. And this whole voice interface is clearly a big driver for the market. And it'll be interesting to see how Google Home will impact this when they launch their products in before the summer. And it's possible that Google Home might be rolled out a bit quicker than Amazon Alexa was in different European countries. So I think this whole voice interface, we see this being a big boost for the market, and especially around products like smart plugs. With smart plugs, the improvement on the user experience provided by the voice interface, I think it's massive. And it just creates a totally new use case where these products suddenly become an easier way to control your appliances rather than having to take on a phone and open an app to control, for instance, a light connected to a smart plug. Now, the voice interface makes it generally really easy to do this. Still, in Europe, the smart plug market it's very fragmented. There's several providers offering these products with no clear big market leader really dominating the space. But when we talk to some of these companies, what we heard time and time again is that the impact from Amazon Alexa was really, really significant, especially in the UK. These companies said, that their sales went up 5 to even tenfold after the launch of Alexa, and they never came down to the point they were before the launch. And I think these products they're an easy add-on product as well because they're relatively inexpensive. But once people get these and have good experience with this voice interface, I think it can open up the door for them to acquire even more products. One of those could be connected lighting. While the story is quite similar, that Amazon Alexa and the voice interface really improves the user experience, the connected lighting market really is dominated by Philips Hue and that brand. Still, there are providers out there as well, but for connected lighting, we've heard a lot of stories around how the user experience probably isn't quite there yet. For instance, with Hue, a lot of people are reporting issues with connectivity, and we've heard from some of the industry experts saying that the API and the integration with Alexa isn't quite there yet. So the user experience isn't always quite optimal. So this could be an opportunity for other companies providing that better, more seamless user experience that Philips hasn't really cracked yet with the voice interface. But then it's not just all about voice in the energy side of things, in energy controls. Connected TRVs, there's already the big players of EQ3 is really the dominant player in the market, especially big in Germany. And of course, Danfoss and Honeywell have been a long time in the market. But what we saw in 2016 and will continue to see in 2017 is a lot of new companies launching these products. Companies like Tado, Schneider Electric, Bosch, Neatmo, they have either launched or are launching their new products for the upcoming heating season. So I think we see this market as being really the next step on the connected heating controls, and it'll be really interesting to see on the upcoming heating season what kind of offerings will we see from these companies, but also from service providers. And this is clearly a market, a part of the market we'll be really keeping a close eye on. And also, it's really interesting to see if these new products will be able to unlock the kind of multifamily home and kind of apartment segment of the market, which is clearly where a lot of the volume is. Because currently, a lot of these solutions are focused on the owner-occupiers.
And just to remind you what I said at the beginning of the webinar, the units we use in this graph are the number of new customers acquired every year. So it's not the number of products sold, it's the number of customers that you acquire on a yearly basis. And therefore, all the customers you had in 2015 are actually potential customers to be cross-sold more connected TRVs. And the manufacturers are reporting to us that once a customer has a few connected TRVs or room controls, it's very likely that in the next few years the customer is going to buy a few more of these year after year, which is quite interesting. It's not an end product like a smart thermostat.
And then, of course, still we can't forget about the smart thermostat. They are still the big ticket item in the industry, and it's very much being pushed by Hive and QB, the big players in UK and the Netherlands. But we also saw now the boiler manufacturers like Bosch, they really are pushing this market and are applying, similar business models that QB was applying, of offering it, bundled with the product, with the core product. And I think we're going to see more and more boiler manufacturers moving this direction. and this could also really boost that segment of the market as well.
Yeah, we had a question from Luke here asking if we knew how many Alexa devices have been sold so far in the UK or internationally. Well, there have been lots of talks online and blogs, etc., about the actual numbers, but obviously Amazon is not communicating on that. What's certain is that we are in the range of millions. So we are estimating between 5 and 10 million Alexa devices, including Amazon Echo, Echo Dot, being installed in the US so far. And my feeling is that around 500,000, probably more of these have been installed in the UK as well since the launch late last year. So it's actually quite a very successful product so far. But there is also a lot of advertising behind. There is a lot of investment from Amazon, so it's not surprising as well. But the reason why it's working well, I think, is that it's actually a very good quality and cheap speaker, actually, for just for the use of Spotify, and therefore people are just buying a very interesting voice control speaker, and at the end they are being shown what they can do for a smart home. So that's an interesting way to get into the market, and I think that's what's really worked well with Amazon Alexa.
Yeah, we also had another question around the connected TRVs, around the fact that, in Europe generally most apartments already have TRVs, and there's no real regulatory driver, for instance, for energy efficiency to really, for these products. But I think from what we've seen in the connected home market, regulation typically isn't the driver for these products. For instance, for connected TRVs, the sales pitch probably, I think, has to be quite similar. That is, for a lot of these products, is the comfort, the convenience, the ease of use. And I think a lot of people can understand the value of, let's say, not heating the upstairs of your apartment at all if you're never there. And it's really easy to understand what the value of these connected TRVs could be. So I think regulation really hasn't been the driver for other types of products in the list either.
There are some, when we look at country by country analysis, there are some regulations that might impact the TRV markets. For example, in some countries you have to monitor radiator by radiator the heat consumption, and like in Germany, for example, you have to install a small sensor that or small meter on that particular radiator. That's the case in Italy, for example, I think. And actually for this player, for manufacturers of TRVs, that's an opportunity for them, because whoever is selling the heat or the energy has to install that meter, and there is someone coming to the house to install it. So again, it's bundling the installation of the TRV and that meter together to reduce the overall cost. So that's what some of the manufacturers are working on today. So again, indirectly, the regulations can drive the market.
Yeah, and moving from all of this, of course, this kind of analysis and insight, it builds up to our forecast, what we see happening in the coming years. Roughly, we forecast the market to, in the next few years, to roughly double in size or in value. And I think the key thing we're seeing is the move to a much more diverse connected home market. It's not just about smart thermostat. These other types of, like connected TRVs, lighting, and smart plugs, they will become a part of the connected home mix, and it will be much more spread out between these different types of products. And I think still worth pointing out, as Arthur did, around that this is the number of new customers. So while the bar for connected TRVs might look quite small, there's, in terms of units, of course, it's much more than compared to smart thermostat, where only one is sold. For connected TRVs, it can often be 4, even 6 products that are sold.
And Matti, can you explain a bit more about how we build this data, and where we got the data from, and how we build the forecast after that?
Yes, so some of this data is from publicly available sources, but the vast majority comes from our network and our industry discussions with industry players. So we talk to pretty much all of the key players across Europe, from product providers to service providers, technology providers, all of these companies. And from that, we build our view, and we have good relations with these companies, and often they're quite open with sharing information with us. And from this, we build our view of the market. This year, we haven't done it at a country or Europe level. We've done it at Europe level, country level, all the way down to estimating at a manufacturer level. And I think this type of granularity really helps us build a good view across these different markets, and understanding really the different markets, because they are very different. When you talk about Europe, it's not just one market. It's very different markets across Europe. And this kind of granularity helps us shape the overall picture.
Yeah, and we have been doing that for almost 5 years now. from when the market actually wasn't existing or was just the trial stage. So we have a good historical view of what happened in the last few years, and that also helps us build the forecast going forward to be conservative enough compared to some of the estimations we've seen online. But the key thing is when we build our forecast, we look at the market drivers that happen at the country level and also at the company level. So when we see a company being more aggressive, having a strategy to go to scale, that will impact the overall market in that particular country, and that's really important to consider.
And for subscribers, from all of this data we've gathered, we've built a sales database tool. And with this tool, for example, you can, quick example here, you can choose the type of products you want to look at. For example, you can look at smart thermostats sold in 2016 in a specific country, or even by a specific manufacturer and showing where the countries occur, or the sales occur in different countries. And from this, you can easily click on and choose different aspects and manipulate the data, and for instance produce graphs that will show you the number of sales and have this also in a data table format. And of course here we've removed the references to any companies or number of customers in this example.
Yeah, that's the tool available to all of our subscribers, obviously. So lots of you here today are subscribers. If you need help to use that tool, feel free to reach out to us. And if you're not a subscriber and are interested in learning more about this, feel free to get in touch. We're also in the process of building what we call a syndicated data gathering for connected heating control. And the plan is to have an aggregated country level and quarterly view on the sales. So at the end of the day, you'll have France, X million products sold, Germany X million sold, etc. For each of the quarters. So if you're interested in participating in this, we will be very happy to chat to you.
And then moving on from this data, of course, we can look at a country level. So on this map, we're showing the penetration levels of connected home products, those products we talked earlier on about, the connected home energy products. So the countries in the darkest have the highest penetration. So in here, it's the only one country, the Netherlands, and then they have more than 10% penetration, and then we have 1 to 10% penetration, and then 0.2 to 1% penetration, and then less than that. So very low penetration. So when we look at the penetration of these products, the two big ones are UK and the Netherlands, and especially the Netherlands. We estimate that to be around 400,000 total customers in the Netherlands with connected home energy products, with QB being the leading brand and Eneco's Tune product being the leading product. And now what we've seen in the Netherlands, that is, while it's been really led by the push from Eneco to create this market, also some of the boiler companies are following suit. And like we've said, Bosch now shipping most of their boilers with a free smart thermostat. The market is really moving to the point of becoming mass market and really taking that next step, that these products become almost the standard, not the exception. Well, UK has followed a bit of a similar trend. We haven't yet seen kind of the boiler manufacturers, other players, really following on the back of British Gas as aggressively yet. So in that sense, the penetration is a bit lower.
But what's actually interesting between these two countries is that the boiler installation value in the product for the price for the end customer is relatively lower than in the rest of Europe. So in the Netherlands, you get a boiler for I think 2,000 euros installed. In the UK for 2,500-3,000 pounds. So the value of the boiler in these countries is actually quite low, and yet companies are still starting to bundle smart thermostat with that. So there is a really big need for getting ahead of the curve or catching up with competitors in order to be relevant in terms of customer and installer choice.
And then the third big market in Europe is Germany, which has been very much led by EQ3. EQ3 is a bit of a unique company in the sense that they're a product manufacturer who offers quite a low-cost solution, but what also makes them quite interesting is that they go through a lot of different channels. So they work with utility partners, they work with big retailers, they have good relation with installers. So they really have probably the most diversified routes to market from all of these companies. It's not just pushed through one channel, but through a lot of channels. And they have really been able to get quite good volumes in Germany and consistent growth in that market, and also increasingly elsewhere.
But what's interesting is that the service providers are not particularly as committed as British Gas and Eneco in Germany, because it's quite hard for them to see the value in that in defining the right products to sell. So we saw Enogy, so the XRWE, really trying to get the heads around markets. It has been growing, but not as fast as others. Deutsche Telekom is now growing at a relatively quick pace. But again, the TRVs are actually the most sold products from the platform, so that's quite interesting. And also what's interesting about EQ3 is that their parent company is actually offering a magazine that's for plumbers, for wholesalers, that offers a lot of the diverse products of plumbing and electricity, etc. And therefore, they have a big database and good relationship with existing installers, which they're able to target easily. So that's one of the reasons why they have more success.
And then when we look at the other markets in Europe, these markets like Belgium, the Southern Europe, they are following quite a bit behind in terms of penetration. And the market is in early stages in these countries, to be honest. And what you see here is that NetAtmo is the leading provider in a lot of these countries. That is both because of that they're available through a lot of channels like retail, but mostly because they have a wide networks of partners and work with someone like Valand on an OEM basis offering their products. So they have therefore been able to create quite a wide coverage for their product to be available in different markets through different partners as well.
Yeah, and we have a question actually, so let's interrupt that. And how will the penetration will look like considering the previous forecast? So actually, when we look at this slide, we only talk about connected heating controls, so we're excluding the smart plugs and the smart lighting. And actually, looking at the forecast, well, we will talk about it in a second, but one of the first slides, we saw the forecast country by country. And we are not very optimistic for the next 2 to 3 years for countries other than UK, Netherlands, and Germany. And the reason to that is that there isn't a clear, committed service providers in these countries. So it's very unlikely that the penetration will go to 1 to 10% in the next 2 to 3 years. This might change though, because it can be very quick for an energy supplier with a lot of market power, like EDF in France or Enel in Italy, to actually change the strategy and go full power on this market. The final thing we want to talk about is Ireland, actually, because it's a very small country. I think around 2 million homes, more or less, and there have been lots of smart thermostats installed so far. So Electric Ireland is offering Climate, the local product, but also Nest and Honeywell, and there are incentives from the government to subsidize the smart thermostats for as an energy efficiency replacement, so that basically you get money back from installing it in some cases. So that really helps drive the market, and that could be a good example for other countries to follow. So in the UK, there are talks about the Eco being redesigned so that smart thermostats are included. I know in France there are lots of discussion around smarter controls as well, or what's the impact on the energy efficiency. So the growth of this market is also being used as a lab to show that the energy efficiency is achieved via more connected heating controls, and therefore governments in the future might decide to help subsidize these products to grow the market.
And finally, we also had a question on this. So conveniently, in the Nordics, the biggest market so far has been by far Sweden, and this has been mostly through push by some of the energy suppliers offering smart plugs. So especially E.ON has been very active in this in Sweden, and we estimate around 100,000 customers to be having these products in Sweden. What's typical for all of the Nordics, not just Sweden, is that the market is quite difficult for connected heating controls. For example, in countries like Sweden and Finland, there are very diverse heating systems, different types of heating system, a lot of district heat. So it's not similar to the markets like, let's say, UK and Netherlands, where it's only gas boilers and one single product pretty much fits every home. There, the products have to be very much bespoke for different purposes. And also, something like district heating, the controls are quite a bit different, and it is quite difficult really to make a business from cost-saving perspective, really, on those markets. So, but we are seeing a lot more activity, and for instance, the launch of these connected TRVs could really shape the market there as well.
Yeah, we have more questions around some countries like Portugal, for example. Is there any data available? Well, the answer is yes, there is data available now. So the problem is the market is very, very small and not very active. EDP is, for example, offering a solution called Ready, which is mostly smart plugs to help control some appliances and disaggregating the electricity consumption from that. So there isn't so many drivers in Portugal to drive that, but generally in the southern part of Europe, there is actually something in a new trend, which is the air conditioning control, especially for single room units. And lots of players like Momit, like Plugwise, Stado have developed solutions to retrofit the remote control of these air conditioning units. So we do believe that there is a lot of value in these countries. The problem is that it's quite difficult to install. It's quite expensive. So there would need to be large companies to develop offerings that are interesting enough for the customers.
So finally then, looking at, so what sales channels are these products going through? So if you look at there, we divide our sales into 4 different sales channels. So that's one is the energy suppliers. So these are any sales that go through an energy supplier, so energy supplier products. Then we have retail. This includes both high street retail and an online retail. Telcos, which includes all the products sold through telcos. There's not that many active telcos in the market. And then finally, installers and wholesalers. The installers and wholesalers is quite often the most trickiest to define, but because of course a lot of these energy suppliers or telcos, they might use installers to install their products, but we made it in the installers and wholesalers. These mostly include companies like boiler manufacturers, some of the controls companies that really work through the trade channels and sell their products through there. So as I said, energy suppliers remain the largest route to market for connected home energy products, primarily due to the smart thermostats being the big product they're pushing to the market. But the thing is, this energy supplies, that's very different by country basis. It really depends on 1 or 2 committed players really being active in the market, whereas the installer and wholesale channel, that is really key across Europe. In pretty much all European markets, it is an important channel because of the heating equipment manufacturers or even cooling equipment manufacturers offering these products.
And actually, yeah, when we did some customer research a while back, we saw that a lot of the customers are actually more willing to buy such products from their plumber, the local electrician or someone like this, rather than buying from a big company or buying on Amazon, etc. So having the right route to market via the installer, via the electrician, the plumber, will be a key to drive that market forward.
But then this picture is maybe slightly skewed, because if we exclude the 2 leading companies of British Gas and Eneco, who have the largest volumes in terms of smart thermostats, then the picture changes quite dramatically. We see the energy supplier share of the market drop down to 20%, and the installers wholesalers becoming around 50%. So this is really showing how kind of young this market still is, because only a few big players, they can really have they shape the picture of what we think about the market. So this really shows how much power there is in the installer, wholesale and trade channels still at this point.
Thank you, Matti. So let's move on now. I'm conscious of time. I don't want to take too much of your time, guys, but the final part of this webinar is, again, coming back to the return on investment and trying to make money out of the connected market. And for those who are subscribing to the service for a long time, you might have seen this table around 3 years ago when we did the business model report for Connected Home. And the point of this table, I won't go through details on the left-hand side, but the point is the 3 main colors on the right are for the size of your customer base around Connected Home, from around 100,000 or less customers, between 100,000 and 1 million customers, and over 1 million customers. And the little pies here are showing the amount of value there is for all this list of potential values. So the main message was that when you have a low number of customers, like less than 100,000, there is very little you can do to monetize this customer base. However, if you go to a big part of your customer base, or over 1 million customers, then there is a lot more you can do. And all these values listed on the left can actually be monetized via these customers. So the economies of scale, for example, is an obvious one for manufacturers, but if you are a maintenance company and have to maintain 1 million boiler, obviously it's much easier if you have half of your customers with remote diagnostics equipped, rather than just 10,000 to actually monetize anything. The radius of churn obviously will grow in a steady line with the number of customers. But also, one really interesting is the monetizing the data through analytics, because you learn as you go, and the more customers you have, the more you can understand, have insights about customers, and understand how to do the analytics with that data, and you can replicate that very easily at high volumes. So this was done 3 years ago again, and the picture might have changed, but this is roughly the key message: is you need to have a quite aggressive strategy in order to generate the value. And now looking at these 3 columns, so the low number of customers, 0.1 to 1 million customers, more than 1 million customers. So this is a picture for some of the European utilities today and where they're at. So you can see on the left-hand side a lot of the utilities in Europe who have a Connexdome offering of some sort. And most of them have less than 100,000 customers. And what we see actually, these arrows that we have here, is their ambition, their willingness to grow their customer base, to be really aggressive with that. And that means investing, and so subsidizing products, doing a lot of marketing campaigns, developing a really solid and robust technological platform, etc., etc. None of them is actually really pushing for that. Well, when we look at Centrica and Eneco, Centrica has invested £500 million over 5 years in that market. They are really trying to get towards the million customers in the space. Eneco has already, as we said, like 0.4 million customers, which is almost 20% of their customer base. So they are really trying to push to get toward that mass market. And actually, once you get to the mass market, there will be short-term examples of values you can generate, like selling your platform as a service, bundling with your core products, the smart meters, etc. But there are also longer-term examples, as we said, monetizing the home energy management, demand response, and monetizing data analytics, for example, will be key values. And the reason why we put, so if you are one of the utilities from here, no worries, we will explain why we put you here. Is there is one example that came up recently with EDF and SOWI in France. So SOWI is a subsidiary of EDF, or spin-off, however you want to call it, and their ambition is to have 1 million customers within the next 10 years with their smart thermostats, sub-metering system, etc. And actually, why we didn't put them with a big arrow going mainstream is that these companies, Centrica and Eneco, are going now towards the mass market. And it's not in 10 years' time that you will be able to compete with them, because they will have taken the mass market, and we believe that there will be a few win it all, because they will be able to sell their platform, they will be able to sell their experience from the analytics, from the data, etc., etc. So the level of ambition for us is really not enough to get all the returns on investment that you might get. There are other examples with Enel, for example, the massive energy supplier in Italy with over 20 or 30 million customers. They have just recently launched an offering in the Connexdome with a gateway and I think a thermostat and a few other devices. But the problem is that offering is really expensive for the customer, and it will only be possible for top-end customers to buy it. And therefore, we don't see that going to mass market unless there are particular changes being made towards this offering.
But in a way, you can also, from a positive, to spin it positively as well, you can say Centrica and Eneco, they have done a lot of the investment around marketing and raising awareness of these products. And of course, the big technology giants are doing the same as well. So the awareness of these products has increased significantly. So in a way, it might be possible some of these utilities, other service providers, to get to bigger customer numbers, with a slightly smaller investment than these big players have had to make, because they really have had to create the market from nothing. And this is something that the newcomers don't have to do, because the market is already there.
Absolutely. And we could replicate that picture. We didn't do it in this webinar, but for boiler manufacturers or controls, etc., we will put probably Bosch ahead of the curve and the others trying to come behind. So obviously there is a question on that around the UK markets, but obviously the boiler manufacturers, as we explained, will be more and more interested in having more appealing offerings with their boilers and bundling that with smart thermostats and other types of Connexdome offerings, actually. So yes, there will be a gradual move from these players towards a more right-hand side. But again, we don't see that's happening clearly today, apart from 1 or 2 examples. And that's really why we think overall that not so many companies are actually getting their returns on investment. Reason number 1 is their investment is relatively low, and to achieve a return on that, you need many more customers than you can actually get from that investment. So we are about 45 minutes now in the webinar, so very quickly to conclude this webinar, we'll show you a bit about the next step of our ongoing research service around the connected home. So for those of you who are subscribers, that will be a good occasion to see what's coming up. And for those of you who are not, well, hopefully you might get interested in what we are doing. So our subscription service is around 4 main axes, and first one is around market reports. So the one we are talking about here is the European annual state of the market, where we review what's happening in Europe. But we also do that country by country or region by region in Europe to really understand who is doing what's really happening, and trying to get under the skin of the market. We're also doing this for Australia at the moment, and we will update some of the key countries going forward. In terms of the product segment reports, we have recently done a study on security devices like cameras, smoke detectors, etc. And we are very likely to do something similar for connected room controls for heating, a bit more in depth that we have done, maybe for multifamily homes, maybe for other connected home devices. It's really up to subscribers to tell us what the need is in this space. In terms of the energy vertical, we are currently doing an ongoing review of the business models, the pricing models of all the utilities, the boiler manufacturers in this space, and we plan to update this quarterly. So the point is to have to see the impact of a particular change in offering on the market, on the number of customers, and to see what could be replicated, what should be used, what should not be used, etc. We are also starting to do a piece on home energy management, linking that with storage, EVs, appliances, etc., trying to understand the value between the connected home, which is more in your living room, the entertainment piece, and almost what's in the boiler room, so all the energy management, etc. So what is the value from connected home in that space? And we're also looking at other verticals. So in the last year, we've looked at telcos, at the tech giants like Amazon and Google. We've looked at security companies and their interest in the energy market via the connected home. But we will also do this ongoing review of their business models quarterly. We'll do that for telcos, for tech companies, for security companies, etc. And so for subscribers, if you have ideas on what else you want us to look at in the next 6 or 12 months, please feel free to let us know in the question box, or if we reach out to you afterwards. We're always willing to take some ideas. So thank you very much, everyone, for being on this webinar today. We will ask you a quick question to finish this webinar. We are always interested in feedback and judging interest from you guys after this webinar. So if you are, could you let us know if you are happy for us to reach out to you later today by phone or email, and we'll try to have a 5-minute conversation to get your feedbacks and your thoughts on that. And well, I think it's time for us to thank you all for taking a bit of your time, your precious time to listen to us. We hope you found that really useful. And we will share the PDFs with you if you want to. There will be a YouTube video made available with the recording of the webinar. And again, we are always available for a chat, for exchanging views, for a meeting. So feel free to let us know if you want to have a chat or exchange views, and we will do that.
And we had a quick question around the presentation. We will share that with all the attendees here. And you can have that along with the recording link to the YouTube link for the recording, which you can then share with some of your colleagues if you think they'd find this useful as well.
Exactly. And the report itself is available to all subscribers and to anyone who wants to subscribe in the coming months. So thank you very much, everyone, and have a good rest of the day. And bye for now.
Thank you, everybody.